I have waited 6 years for objections to the electric theory of creation, and have found only one recently stated. This first and only objection is that electricity is a derivative force. Professor G.F. Wright of Oberlin, again, in an article in the Chicago Record, December 1902, says, "Many of the speculations concerning the unlimited use of electricity overlook the fact of its derivative origin. Electricity is but transformed force. It is not a producer of force, but a consumer of force. It merely directs the force to its specific end." Duh. No kidding. That's what it does. It merely directs the force to its specific end. The electricity which propels and warms the street cars of Buffalo and furnishes power to its small factory and illumines its streets is merely force diverted from the falls of Niagara. In other words, it is transformed gravity. True, but gravitation is simply electric attraction, and the electricity that propels lights and warms the cars is electric attraction, diverted from the falls and used on the cars. It is not derivative force, but the original and only force, electric force, transferred from the falls to the cars. But Professor Wright himself destroys his own argument when he says, "In other cases, the electricity is derived from the heat of consuming coal. The coal is the product of the sun's rays, chemically sealed up in the coal deposits of the early geological ages. All the available force in the world is a product of the sun's rays." Enough said there. In this we fully agree. As I say, the heat is in the coal, and the heat of the sun is electricity. The sun's rays, which he says is all the available force in the world, is electricity, and the sun is the great electric heart of the solar system. Thus we differ only in terms. While he whips electricity around the stump and says that it is a new thing, every time he turns a corner, I say it is the same electricity without any change, improves the oneness of the universe. It surely does, as a vast electric organism. Thus our great scientists befog themselves now that Langley says there is only one radiant matter, and light, heat, and chemical changes are all one entity. Perhaps he may change his view. I have tried to convince these cross-eyed reasoners that all force is one force, and all matter is one matter, and the scientists are now coming to that conclusion steadily. Sorry, they're still on the wrong side. Professor Wright says again, the strength and warmth of all animal bodies is traceable to carbon, and whenever we move a limb or walk, the power to do it is obtained by the consumption of carbon. Well, I say, carbon is one form of stored electricity. He says, the ox feeds upon the grass, which is collected or grows through the influence of sunlight. And I say, sunlight is electric currents from the great electric dynamo, the sun. He says the nebular theory is faulty, and I agree with him. He says gravitation is an utter mystery that has baffled all scientific explanation, and I agree with him, and go a step further and affirm that there is no such thing as gravitation, and never was. Newton discovered one of the dual forces of electricity, which I call universal electric attraction, and called it gravitation. He says, so far as we can see, gravitation acts instantaneously, and Newton gave up the problem of defining it and said he had no explanation except to say God made it so. This is true. But Newton knew nothing of electricity, or his great intellect would likely have discovered the truth and named it and explained it as electric attraction. Newton discovered an imaginary force, an idea, a dream, an occult force, as Leibniz called it. Newton had an imagination, which the scientific plotters who have come after him lack. They have dug in the dirt while he sailed through azure seas and linked suns and worlds together by a mere sweep of the imagination, without any explanation or conceivable cause, and called it gravity. He might as well have called it ponderosity. Philip Atkinson, in his work on electricity, 1902, asserts that energy manifests itself either in masses of matter or in small particles called molecules. And thus we have two kinds, mass energy and molecular energy. You know, I remember in his presentation, Princeton, Manuel de la Coste, Back of Earth and the Beatles, said that the greatest time for scientific discovery in the history of man, the greatest decade, was the year 1895 to 1905. It boggles the mind of all the things discovered. Have we two kinds of energy? Mass energy and molecular energy is the same. Mass energy is but the aggregation of molecular energy. Large bodies attract small ones because they possess more electric energy. Gravity, or weight, is but another name for aggregate molecular electric attraction of the Earth for everything upon its surface. The gravity or weight of a man is the pull or force with which the electric attraction of the Earth holds him to its surface. In other words, the Earth is a vast magnet, and man's body is a smaller magnet. As the magnetic core of a steel magnet draws all metals toward its magnetic center, so does the Earth magnet draw all things toward its center. The same author states that the Earth is a great thermopile, generating electric currents by the difference of potential between its heated and cooled parts. In this I agree with him, but he only states one of 1,000 ways to generate electric currents. He says further, heat is believed to be a certain mode of molecular motion, and electricity to be another mode. But the nature of the motion of each has never been discovered, and I think never will, as long as the false notion prevails that heat and electricity are modes of motion. A mode of motion is nonsense, for motion is an effect produced by a cause. It is not a cause, and all cause of motion is electricity. Now there's a good saying. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. And the mode of operation is the law of electromagnetism. There is no difference in the law or mode of motion of electric currents in a volcano, in a cloud, in the earth, in the sun or planets, in an electric light, or in man's body. The same law exists, and the same natural results follow when one lights the gas with a flash of electricity from his finger, as when a meteor blazes, a comet flares out in space, or a sun becomes luminous. The same force that man causes to run along a telegraph wire, or through a telephone circuit, or which runs a streetcar line, or is taken by the brushes from a revolving dynamo, is the same force and operated under the same law or mode of force as the electric life-giving currents that come from the sun constantly as an omnipotent tide of power. Professor Thomson says the Earth is generally found to be negatively electrified and is insulated in its atmosphere, being in fact a conductor touched only by air, a strong insulator. He says further the quality of non-resistance to electric force of the interplanetary ether being considered, the Earth, the atmosphere, and surrounding medium may be regarded as constituting, respectively, the inner coating, the dielectric, and the outer coating of a large Leyden jar, charged negatively. Professor S.P. Thomson, in Electricity and Magnetism, says Gilbert made the discovery that the compass points north and south because the Earth is also a great magnet. Faraday said all matter is in a magnetic condition. Sir Oliver Lodge says the idea that magnetism is a whirl of electricity is as old as the emperor. Perceiving that a magnet could be initiated by an electric whirl, he made the hypothesis that an electric whirl existed in every magnet. How right he was. Maxwell announced the proposition that electromagnetic phenomena and light phenomena have their origin in the same medium and are identical in nature. Hertz, by actually producing, detecting, and controlling electric waves, caused the discovery of wireless electricity, and it is by the wonderful wireless telegraphy of light that man is put on communication with every considerable body in the universe, including even the invisible. By it, the goings-on in Sirius and Algol, Orion, and the Pleiades are reported across enormous stretches of millions of miles of space, and by the vibratory motion of the invisibility small, all things are revealed. The infinity little has enabled us to conquer the inconceivably big. I hold, seeing and hearing are the simplest examples of wireless telegraphy. Elihu Thomson, the great electrician, says, Hertz proved that all luminous phenomena are in essence electrical. Wireless electricity is the outcome of Hertz experiments on electric waves. Electrical conditions and actions are more fundamental than hitherto regarded. William Ramey, a distinguished chemist, says it is primary assumption that atoms of elements, or in certain cases groups of atoms, are themselves electrified, and atoms possess positive and negative poles, and combination ensue between such oppositely electrified bodies. Mr. Francis Gearson, a prominent scientist of London, in a recent London periodical, says, so far as we know, electricity is the soul of visible form. What we call brain waves have an analogy to electric waves. The discoveries and inventions of the last 10 years have made child's play of every previously known system of philosophy. That was when Velikovsky was talking about it too. The simple but amazing facts disclosed during the past 5 years render the dreams, speculations, and guesswork of the past absurd. The little we know, in a practical way, is more than all the philosophers of the past. I feel like I've read that before too. Professor Langley, in his address at the 1902 session of the American Association of Scientists, stated that up to 1872 it was almost universally believed that there were 3 different kinds of energy: actinic, luminous, and thermal, represented in the spectrum. But he affirmed there is only one radiant energy, which appears to use as actinic. There is only one radiant energy, which appears to use as actinic, luminous, or thermal, according to the way we observe it. Heat and light are not things in themselves, but different sensations in our bodies, or different effects in other bodies. They are merely effects of this mysterious thing we call radiant energy. Thus sustains my position. He thus sustains my position and the electric theory of creation, which is that there is but one universal and ultimate energy, which he calls radiant, and I call electric energy, and which are the same thing. It is said that an Italian physicist wrote in 1843, light is merely a series of colorific indications sensible to the organs of light, or vice versa. The radiations of obscure heat are vertible invisible radiations of light. Heat are vertible invisible radiations of light. Thus Langley, by his elaborate researches, more refined and complex than all preceding ones, proved to be true, since so orthodox a scientist as Langley has proven there is but one energy, and other scientists may stumble over it a while and then accept it. He is a high authority, and it didn't work. Sir Oliver Lodge, in The Electrical World, of February 21st, 1903, sustains the electrical theory strongly. He says, all matter is electrical in its nature. The difference between one kind of matter and another lies in the physical and chemical properties of the atom. But the difference between the atoms is merely due to the difference of the electric grouping of the atom. He holds that Thomson corpuscles are all electric. Thomson's theory is that negative electricity is matter. Lodge holds that all matter, down to the ultimate corpuscle, is electricity, or electrical substance. Thus, I am sustained by the highest, most recent authority. Professor E.L. Larkin of the California University said recently, the Earth has a permanent charge of negative electricity, and the atmosphere is positive. The surface potential is therefore very near zero. This permits electromagnetic waves from the sun to act with unabated energy. Professor Lucien I. Blake of Kansas University said in a recent lecture, all atoms of matter are charged with electricity. All vital actions are always connected with electricity. I could fill a volume with recent statements of scientists showing that electricity produces all the phenomena of nature, all of which they have learned in the past few years. While as a pioneer in this field of thought, I have been trying to propagate these electrical theories for many years. Every year, new facts are discovered showing that electricity is the cosmic, evolving, ultimate, and only force in nature, and the universe is a vast electric machine, or organism, moved by electric currents of measureless force and power. The Earth revolves around the Sun. The Sun gravitates around some sidereal center in motion like itself. And myriads of suns and planets, with their countless population, move with many times the velocity of a cannonball. Stars that seem tranquil and motionless in the heavens are projected through space with a velocity of 100 to 200 miles per second. Atoms of our bodies move relatively with as much velocity as the stars in the heaven. Motion, electric energy, reigns everywhere, forms everything, controls, handles, and evolves all suns and planets, all physical life, substance, and organism, human experience, and universal nature. The electric rays of light from suns and stars of the most distant constellation dart their beams across the universe, and centuries after, the impulse of electric energy enters the human eye and gives sense and vision to the soul. Thus, the dynamic chains of electric light binds into living unity the realms of matter and mind, though measureless amplitudes of space and time. These electric currents are not only the source of all natural phenomena, but the sea of electromagnetism from which they come is the reservoir of life, which stands back of all the myriad manifestations of physical existence, and is the great fountain of vitality from which all life must come. What is electricity? Tesla says it is invisible light. Atkins says it is molecular motion. Fleming says it is a spiral twist of the ether. But the best definition is given in the Scriptures, where it says all things were made by the word of his power. It is the word of creative power. End of chapter. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Yes.
I hope everything is okay out there with the signal.